Okay, welcome back, guys, to the Battlefield Theologian YouTube channel. I'll get used to saying that better. So last class, we talked about introduction to hermeneutics, interpretation, meaning, application, and implication. Today we're looking at approaching the text. 4 items that you need to consider before you open up the Bible and approach the text. And what's great about this is the more you do it, the more muscle memory builds up and the easier it gets. Right? So the first thing I want to clarify here is when we approach the text, we do what is called exegesis. You might have heard people use this term before, meaning I've done an exegetical work on the passage. They use a sound exegetical approach, or we want to use exegesis. Exegesis really means we are extracting out of the text what the interpretation of the passage says, meaning we're not injecting our own opinions, we're not injecting what we want, we are just letting the text speak for itself and attempt to try and do our best to pull straight from the text without cluttering it up with our own presuppositions. Now, a lot of times what I see happen very, very frequently online and in a lot of modern books is called eisegesis. Eisegesis is reading into the text something that it does not say. And this is very commonly used where people will use the term, well, what I feel like this passage means to me is fill in the blank. Or what I think this means is this. When we want to just say, okay, I see you're reading into the text, let's just let the text speak for itself. All right, so we've got exegesis, we have eisegesis, and then the big word hermeneutics. What on earth? Why do we use that word? Sometimes, we have these theological terms, and the reason why we have these terms is just to qualify it's kind of a word that has a large scoping umbrella, and underneath this word is all of these other subcategories, and it's easier to understand these bigger theological terms, and we shouldn't be distracted or intimidated by them. But hermeneutics is literally the scientific approach, or essentially the science of interpreting the Bible. That's it. It's a set of rules that you follow to accurately understand and interpret a passage. Essentially what it does is it gives you your left and your right parameters to make sure that you're not muddying it up or you're not reading into the text. And so hermeneutics is like the policeman that blows its whistle and say, you're out of line, be cautious. Now, another thing, the last thing that we do that we need to be cautious about when we approach the text is what's known as a false assumption. What does that mean? Well, what this is a person like yourself or myself that goes to the text and we assume that the word that we see in English means the same thing throughout all of the text. A great example is the word all. When you read the word all, and all came to hear Christ and all were baptized, what does the word all mean? You have to allow the text within the context of that section speak for itself and not assume that just because the word all applies here, it's the same understanding as all, meaning the entire person on the globe with a pulse. It doesn't mean the same thing. Same thing with the word helpmate and other things. So being cautious that you don't make a false assumption that just because the word says it here, is it the same type of word in the way it's used later on in another passage. So that is our second lesson on approaching the text. If you like this, hit subscribe, turn on the notification button for the next class, which we're going to be looking at what approach of hermeneutics do we use.